It is an absolute pleasure to welcome author Erika Leigh Agnew to our series of author interviews.
Oh,
Welcome, Erika, who's
thank
based
you.
in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. And
Yeah,
thank you so much for taking the time to join us on The Author's Voice and share your book, Dragonsown, with teachers here in the UK.
thank you very much. Thank you for the opportunity.
Absolutely. Before we get stuck into your book, Erika, can you tell
Mhm.
me a little bit more about yourself? How did you come to write children's books?
It was actually very simple. I didn't have a big burst of inspiration or anything like that. I believe like it was a number of years ago that I started writing it, but I believe I was just sitting quietly, maybe on a drive home or something like that. And literally the thought, hey, I should write a book, like simply like popped into my head. And I kind of thought about it and I was like, yeah, I could write a book. You know, what am I going to write about? So obviously not wizards or witches or werewolves or vampires or anything that's been so popular lately. But the idea of like dragons popped into my head. And I just kind of thought, well, what like different things can I say about dragons? What hasn't been overdone? And again, the idea just popped in, hey, people who turn into dragons, that hasn't been done lately. So why not give that a go? So it was literally that simple, just a linear thought right through, just connect the dots. And that's how I got the idea for the book and started.
So give us a bit of a overview of what is your book all about? What's Dragonzone about?
Okay, so this is it. I just printed it back in August. Hopefully you can see the cover there.
Oh,
So
it's a fascinating cover.
dragon there with a young man standing in front of him. So it was published back in August. So it's a kind of predates medieval times. I didn't want to get caught up in real life kings and queens and nationalism politics or anything like that. So I just based it really pre-medieval times. Like there's kings and queens in a structured society, but I didn't really want to place it in a specific time period. But it's about two twin brothers being raised by their father, who's kind of an absentee father, wrapped up in his own business, leaving the boys, at their own and allowing the servants to raise the boys. So it starts off with the two boys there, Cale and Keaton, and the story evolves into they find out that their family is actually very wrapped up in dragon history, and the boys have been brought up to believe that dragons never existed. So ends up being pretty complicated for them. So further down the story, we find that Cale is actually part of the Dragonsown and very immersed in the dragon community and how the story evolves from there.
So, what would you like children to enjoy most about reading your book?
Yeah, foremost, I just want to say the story is fun. I just want it to be a fun, enjoyable story. There are serious elements within things that are important to me, messages that are important to me that I really just wanted to touch on within the story without getting all over detailed or preachy or anything like that. But I wanted to, first of all, have kids just fun, imagination. There's all kinds of mythical creatures in this story. So, just the more outlandish, the better, I guess. But I did touch on things that mean something to me, such as an appreciation for nature. So I touch on them enjoying being in nature, appreciating the green and like the animal sounds and things like that. But also on homeless dogs. So I actually have the boy's uncle adopt a stray dog from the capital city. So, just things that mean a lot, but just touch on. So.
Reading for pleasure is such an important element of the reading curriculum and
Yes.
drives attainment across other subjects as well. It's nice to have a book that the children will just enjoy. And that's always the bonus, because they
Yes.
want more, don't they?
Yes.
So certainly we also have to look at the national curriculum in terms of how your book would be best placed within the classroom setting for the development of reading for understanding, which is the other side of the reading curriculum that we as teachers have to focus on. How would your book fit within the national curriculum in terms of the development of reading comprehension skills?
Mm-hmm. I do get in, like I mentioned, pets and, nature, but I do, there is a big element of the story of, not judging people too quickly, having an open mind, not prejudging people or situations, because, that is humans being introduced to dragons, something that blows their mind. And obviously they have all these stories in the back and the history and like just have the inclination to assume they're monsters and obviously it leads to more conflict. But so I do bring in like prejudice, discrimination, just touch on it, introduce it into the story. And, it's just something, it's all inferred, and, you just become aware of it. So also language where I try to use much more descriptive, not he said, it's he assured him, he remarked, he questioned, he noted, so I definitely try to like put more colorful language where I could. And as well, there's parts of the story later on, like I've reviewed the factors here, and like the summarizing, there's definitely areas in the story where we bring everything that's happened, we summarize it before moving forward, and as well as recounting, and just there's so many elements.
And would you say that Dragonsown is geared towards the older reader or the younger reader? What age group would you say is best suited to access the text?
I would definitely say 12 and up. 12 and up, because there is definitely some goofy parts. The main character, he's clumsy, he's not the most popular boy, his brother Keaton's much more popular and has a lot more friends. So, but we start off with like the goofy kid, and later on he becomes the hero. He really comes into his own. But I wouldn't say so much like jump in with the 16-year-olds, perhaps, because maybe they might find parts of the story that are a little bit young for them, but definitely like 12 and up.
So I think at this point, I'm going to hand over to you so that you can share a bit of your book with us. Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right, so this is after Cale is already transformed into a dragon, and so he's met his guardian, which is a wyvern, which is basically a small type of dragon. So she shows him the ropes, helps him through the transformation. He's met up with his uncle, who is also one, and at this point they're reaching the secret society of the rest of the Dragonsown, which basically live in an underground city. So this is where they're reaching that city. Where the last room had been almost barren, the next one appeared to be made of gold. Gold brick floor, gold chandeliers, gold sconces, gold pillars reaching up to a gold ceiling. Everywhere Cale looked, he saw gold. He opened his mouth to speak, but Arius shot him a warning glare and pointed to the corners of the room where black shadows moved. Cale paused and squinted, only catching glimpses of these things that moved in and around them. A black eye peered at him from around a pillar before the rest of its body slid out into view. A black wyvern. Cale was thrilled until Sarai quickly moved in between them, shaking her head in reprimand. She nudged Cale forward, and he trailed Arius through the rest of the chamber. The first black wyvern was soon joined by 3 others, and they formed a guard around them until a massive black door came into view. There, the black wyverns moved off to the side and sat, waiting patiently. Cale studied the door. It was divided into 4 squares. Each square had a beautiful carved black dragon curled up within it, their heads meeting in the center where there was no door handle but a small circular opening, intricately outlined with bands of gold. Cale again opened his mouth to speak. Not needing to look back at him to know, Arius held up his hand. Without warning, the carved dragons began to move within their squares. They slithered around their 4 corners, in one direction, then another. Cale stared at them, perplexed. How are they to open this? Then the door dragons spoke as one in a whispering, raspy voice. We were created with the 4 keys of Reich to protect the dragons and their own alike. We will not yield. We will not fall. Among our gifts is the knowledge of all. If you are able to answer our call, we may allow you to enter this, our great hall. You will need might and you will need fire in order to light our joined pyre. Lighting the fire is a must, or our friends here will turn you to dust. Either or, it matters not to us, so you may stand there and curse and cuss. For we have all the time in the world, but it's your life's journey that has yet to unfurl. So better be fast and better be quick and light with dragon fire this unlikeliest of wicks. With that they stopped, turned their heads, and locked their jaws into the golden circle. Sarai stepped up with purpose, and one of the black wyverns met her. It sniffed her lightly around the head. Then it bowed and sat back down with the others. Proudly, Sarai puffed her chest and blew a powerful blast of fire into the circle. The door unlatched loudly and slowly opened down the middle. Sarai walked through. Arius grabbed Cale's arm and made to follow. But instantly, the black wyverns were on their feet, growling, their many dagger-like teeth glinting. Hold, our friends. Of this choice, Severn must be jesting. For there is much dark blood within we are sensing. Therefore, if this one's entering, we must be contesting. Arius looked up at them angrily and growled, "He is of my blood too." "Oh, Arius, we find you to be most hilarious. Behind your pretty and brave mask, you are so sure it is not of your blood, we ask." "Sir, I face them." "Enough. Do I need to call upon him? He will no doubt be sorely vexed to find his wishes being questioned by a few door knockers." The door dragons howled with irritating laughter and made mocking noises before relenting. "Fine, fine. Enter if he must. For it is not only of us that he must gain trust. We were merely helping him to prepare for his meeting with Giannidan. It is very questionable how he will fare." Arius pushed Kale through the doors to the sound of their snickering, the light reflecting off their sightless eyes. They had barely passed into another dark room when the door slammed shut. "Well, that was awful," Kale noted.
So thank you, Erika, for sharing your wonderful book, Dragonsown, with teachers here in the UK. It is always such a pleasure to hear the author's voice behind the children's books. And finally, can you share with us where can we purchase your book here in the UK?
It is definitely available on amazon.co.uk, and it is in paperback and ebook Kindle format.
So we look forward to hearing more about your book and your journey as a writer. We'll make sure that we place links for Dragonsown with this video. Thank you so much for joining ReadMaster for UK Teachers, home of the author's voice.
Thank you very much.